able to master the art of memorizing talks. How's everyone doing? Good. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Did you come last year too? Yeah. Awesome. Ready? All right, cool. My name is Emilie. I'm the VP for Beneleaves. We're a standalone processor and manufacturer in Columbus, Ohio. We process medical and adult use cannabis for Ohio. I also work in governmental affairs and a lobbyist. And so I lobby on behalf of the cannabis industry to try to protect just us as operators and help be a voice for activists and consumers alike. I did start off in the activist world and have definitely kind of dabbled in many different parts of the industry. So good afternoon. I'm absolutely delighted to be here to talk about my two personal favorite things, which is women and cannabis. Now let's be honest, when you think of the old school cannabis industry, what image pops into your head? For decades, the narrative around this plant has been dominated by these stoner stereotypes and has been a lot of male energy. The cannabis industry is now a multi-billion-dollar industry composed of science, wellness, technology, and very sophisticated retail. The total economic impact of the legal cannabis in the United States is projected to reach approximately $115.2 billion into 2024, showcasing its massive scale. And guess who's been running the labs, operations, writing the legislation, and launching the most innovative brands, and generally keeping the whole operation from floating off into the stratosphere? Women. We have moved from being the silent consumers to the essential innovators, and we are here to talk about getting a permanent seat at the table and why our voices and our advocacy are the most crucial ingredient for the future of this green industry. The revolution, as it turns out, is female. Women are launching brands, running multi-state operations, and leading the scientific research that is finally validating what many of us have known for decades. The numbers don't lie. For a new volatile industry, women have shown incredible resistance. While the percentage fluctuates, a major industry report found that women account for approximately 39% of all cannabis executives in the US as of 2023. This is a massive rebound to the pre-pandemic levels and a testament to our skill and determination. We were outpacing the national average for female executives in other industries for a while, proving that when the slate is wiped clean, we are ready to lead. But we must keep pushing. When we look at business ownership, the numbers aren't quite as high, having recently fallen to around 60% of companies being owned by women in 2023. And here's where the nuance matters. Women are crushing it in certain niche sectors. For example, in cannabis testing labs, women often hold many executive positions because who else are you going to trust to keep all the science and data clean? We are the OG cultivators. We are not just consumers, we're innovators. If the cannabis industry were a house plant, it would be the perfect amount of sunlight and fertilizer. However, while we have this amazing presence, we need to ensure that the power translates into lasting. Oh, that's a bunny. I saw the little fuzzy thing on your shoulder, sorry. We need to ensure that our power translates into lasting progress, especially in ownership and investment. And that brings us to the importance of the A word, advocacy. Advocacy sounds like a big, scary, serious word. Like being a briefcase, megaphone, super fancy suit, but advocacy starts very small. It starts with where you spend your money. It starts with who you recommend for a job. Advocacy is simply giving your support to an idea or a cause that you believe in. For us, that means ensuring that this new multi-billion-dollar industry is built on fairness and not just profit. We can distill our essential work into three main pillars and three things that we need to champion. First one being social justice and equity. This is a big one, and we cannot celebrate the green rush while ignoring the war on drugs. This war disproportionately impacted women, particularly women of color. The data on this is chilling. Nationally, Black people are approximately 3.6 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than white people, despite similarities. This disparity has not improved much in any areas, even in states that have legalized. Our advocacy here means using our power to demand change. What does this look like? It means pushing for automatic expungement of past convictions. We have an opportunity to do that here with SB 56. It means supporting social equity licensing programs that give business ownership priority to communities harmed by prohibition. And we need to be the voice that reminds everybody it's not truly legal until it's equitable. And 2, business representation. We've seen the stats, nearly 40% of executives are women. That's awesome. But the ownership number is still too low at 16.4%. And the number of businesses that are both women and minority owned can be less than 5. Representation isn't just about having one woman in the room. It's about having a seat at the table where the money and all of the major decisions are being made. And what does this look like? It means demanding diverse corporate boards, no more all-male panels at industry conferences, no offense. It means mentorship and capital. We need to actively funnel investment dollars and resources to women and minority entrepreneurs. We bring different perspectives, better products, and frankly, better decision-making to the table. We need to ensure that the wealth being generated is shared equitably among people who risk the most. And 3, policy and progress. Advocacy is also about the boring, necessary stuff, the policy, because bad policy kills businesses and smart policy helps consumers. We're talking about massive federal issues like banking and taxation, getting the industry out of cash-only status, which we're still in, and issues like product safety and marketing regulations. The challenge is the voter-approved law, Issue 2, here in Ohio, is already subject to legislative review and modification attempts. These efforts include provisions that could lead to increased taxation, recriminalization of minor offenses, such as bringing product in from out of state, and adjustments to consumer protections. This constant legislative tinkering introduces significant regulatory uncertainty that can threaten businesses and greatly affect the public. We need to engage in sustained data-driven policy and advocacy to defend the fundamental structure established by voter-approved Issue 2. Our efforts must prioritize regulatory stability and secure the intended tax revenue allocations and ensure that laws are built on science and common sense and not outdated fear. We have proven that women are the absolute powerhouses of the cannabis industry. We are in lab code, spreadsheets, grow rooms, boardrooms, kitchens, operations, marketing, accounting. Our presence is power and our voice is our tool. We need to use it to lift those who haven't had the same opportunities and use it to champion smart, fair policy. We need to use it to ensure that the cannabis industry is not just a temporary green rush, but sustainable and equitable. And we can be bold and speak up. A woman who advocates for what she believes in is unstoppable. Thank you. I will also answer any questions about what's going on legislatively right now. Yes, sir.
I have a few questions. When you're processing your products, who do you get those from?
Like the flower itself?
Yes.
So we procure that from cultivators that are licensed through Ohio. It's a license, Ohio has a set of licensed operators and licensed cultivators. And so as a standalone processor, we buy biomass from those cultivators, and then we process it and distill it through our extraction equipment in our facility.
Okay. When you're processing the products, you separate so-called organic, the organic products and the ones that have been sprayed with pesticides, or you mix them?
So Ohio, all of our products are triple tested, including the oil and the flour. And so because we have such strict testing regulations in Ohio, pesticides are part of those strict testing requirements under those COAs. And so cultivators are not allowed to use pesticides unless they are approved organically and naturally under the DCC and the state issued testing labs.
Okay, on your packaging, are you telling people that pesticides have been used in the manufacture of this product? Yes or no?
So for cultivators, it will, if they are using like a naturally derived pesticide, it'll show up on their certificate of analysis on the back of their flower. And then under Ohio, cultivators are required to list everything they've used to treat their flower. And so you can usually find that like on their website or like their COA. And if you contact any one of those cultivators as well, they'll be able to provide the information.
But not on the packaging.
The packaging will just link to the COA, but then you can always get a hold of the company and they're legally obligated to let you know what they've used.
Seems concerning. Seems concerning with that one. And,
Can I comment on that, sir? I work in a dispensary. I work at Bloom, and there usually is a QR code that you as a dispenser yourself may have to do a little research yourself, but they do come with the QR code, especially if you're a patient. There's a QR code, and you scan that QR code, which most people don't because they just think it's nothing. But it literally takes you either to the site or somewhere where it lists where you could get a connection to the information of the pesticides that were used in the product that you decided to purchase.
I see lists in dispensaries like printed out on paper for customers. What do you tell them to use?
I have a question. What efforts are there currently to retain medical patients and that type of data, that having a medical patient linked to a condition, linked to the type of cannabis that they use? What is there talk of that at all in the industry? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I work a lot nationally as well, and one of the things we do see when states kind of embrace and flip to adult use is that these medical programs do get overshadowed. I just personally have been very loud and championing just us being able to support our medical cannabis program here. I started off my career medically cannabis based, and so that's always been something that's been very deeply personal for me. I think it takes a lot of us to speak up and keep writing, the DCC, Department of Cannabis Coalition, our lawmakers, and just continually be talking about adding more conditions. And, I do think that a lot of the dispensaries, they've embraced, giving medical patients a little bit more flexibility with different lines and the taxes. And, I know for us as a processor, we're always looking at our products from a medical lens. And so I think kind of just depends on the products. And I do know that Department of Cannabis Coalition as well are constantly trying to make pivots on, what products are medical and what will be adult use. We're waiting on a couple roll packages right now as well. They're kind of in more or less a holding pattern until we figure out what's going on with the legislature. And so there's a lot going on there as well.
They're trying to reduce the milligrams on package, on single units, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something, especially for medical patients, right, who rely on something like a 50 milligram gummy. That's something that they need to, if they do rely on those things, they should speak up and talk to their legislators about, since that is something that they are trying to I guess change via the rule package, right?
Yeah, and I
it's
agree
not
completely.
even.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I started off kind of like my Ohio career here in retail. And one of the most fascinating things to me, because I can barely do edibles, like I'm like one milligram,
Yeah.
mentally preparing myself, right? So it was fascinating to have patients coming in that were, they were trying to be done with you know, any of the medications that they have. And anyone who's worked retail in Ohio probably has very similar stories where you have patients coming in, their tolerance is already so high from taking these pharmaceutical medications that they need a higher dose to get that, you know, that impact and those effects, and those healing benefits from the product. And so I am championing for that. Additionally, with like the pre-rolls, or I think the DCC and one of the roll packages, it's, you know, the infused pre-rolls is only going to be for adult use and not medical. And so I know there's a lot of nuance in that, and there's many of us that are trying to champion and try to have some impact and dialogue around that.
What about products like RSO? Have you heard anything about that? In terms of,
Not particularly. I think that's still going to be available for both, but that is interesting. I kind of want to circle back on that.
Because that's a higher dose way for people to
Absolutely.
especially if those gummies are not going to be available at those higher levels. It's very hard, I know personally, to eat 15 gummies. You know, if you're gonna, you know, if you're trying to get to a certain effect, and you're absolutely correct that people like myself, as I came out of opioid addiction, I was taking up to 10 Vicodin a day when I was going to. So I needed something very powerful. I couldn't just take, you know, a 10 milligram gummy. And so, yeah, it's a very concerning issue right now that some of those products for people who have extreme pain and acute conditions might not have access to those. But it sounds like, you know, more advocacy is in order, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's emailing, it's calling, it's letting people know. Absolutely. Yeah.
She has it out there.
Yeah, I think it's all
It's on the table there.
Sorry, with the state of Ohio, 2 years ago, they said they want legal weed. Now, 2 years later, there's a lot of pushback to try to change various aspects of that. Is that just the way of the cannabis world? Does that happen in every state? Is that pretty specific to Ohio that they're trying to overturn it? Or does every state sort of go through these growing pains?
Ohio is very unique in that they're trying to overturn it here. I actually think it's the first time that has happened.
We're known for a lot
And
of
someone
things.
feel free to fact check me with that, but I'm almost positive this is the first time it's happened.
Okay.
But other states do have similar pressure points. I think every state right now is definitely trying to figure out the proper balance between, especially these intoxicating hemp products, and because we know there are some very good players, and there's some players that are breaking a lot of rules and providing product that is not safe. And so I think Ohio is kind of falling in line with that, where it's where do we find the proper balance in that. And so Ohio is trying to tease that out right now as well. And there are some things that are, you know, beneficial, and there are some things in this newest revision. So we're speaking to SB or 56, the version 18, which it passed the House, and then the Senate, it was, you know, unilaterally no. And so from this point, it'll go to two committees, one in the House, one in the Senate, and then basically those two committees will work together to either, you know, try to make different amendments, and then both those committees have to agree, and then the bill will pass as is. But if they do not agree, then it'll be a birth of a new bill. But with that new bill, I think they're still probably going to mirror a lot of the things that are in 56. But I'm hoping with some of these newer amendments, we will see things like the recriminalization being removed, things added back in, like expungement and that sort of thing. But to your point, I mean, every state is kind of working through their own ways of how to do it.
Why is it, this just blows my mind. I mean, I'm one of those guys that there is no waste. You know, there's just no waste. Like a plant, like I don't want to waste the plant. Like I won't throw any part of the plant away. So why is it that every single grower in the Ohio medical program currently has extra grow space that somebody could be using? And nobody, not one company has reached out, part of social justice, none of this, to anybody affected by cannabis. Then you're telling me that females have been adversely affected? That's not true. The most adversely affected people, are economically challenged people, So you need to lift those people up.
Oh, yeah, I
So this is ridiculous, and not one single company, Ohio Medical Program has done anything for anybody that I know of, to do that for people.
Well, the regulations
$12
prevent,
billion
Sam.
in the fund right
Yeah.
now.
Sam, the
There's
regulations
$12 billion
prevent a lot of that.
people,
Yeah.
And these people are suffering.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I can't believe y'all sitting here like nothing's happening. This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Ridiculous. And y'all sit here. You companies out here, it's just ridiculous. You come out here and can't do nothing for somebody's social justice. It's ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. I just want to make my point. That's it. I just want to make my point. I just want to make my point. That's it. Somebody has to voice it.
Sam. Sam.
I'm fine.
Get out.
Come on. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not getting out of control. Am I right? That's got a little loud. Not out there.
You're more than a little out of control.
Yeah, you're out of
control. There's $12 million sitting in the fund, and people are suffering out there.
Sam, we're getting security right now.
Okay,
This is also being recorded.
okay, that's fine. But there's $12 million in the fund.
Alex,
And people are
Sam.
suffering. And y'all don't see them like I see them.
Alex,
Because
Sam.
y'all weren't out there like that. I'm the one that was arrested over cannabis. Have you been arrested over cannabis? Who's been arrested over cannabis in this room? Me. Exactly. So let's get going. Let's put these people to work. Let's stop the suffering. That's what I went to school for. That's why I got a biopharmaceutical in my backpack. That's what I went to school for. I'm going to help people one day, if you like it or not.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. And that's part of what's going on now is there's so much miscommunication, lack of education from just with everything that's going on, that it does make it very difficult, especially when people are passionate like themselves. And it's like, it's really hard because, and for me, I think personally, like, I have seen so many different aspects of this industry. Like, I had grow houses in Akron, like 20 years ago. That's what I did. Like, I started off in the industry, and then it's recorded so good. I started off in the industry that way. I started off as an advocate. I was down at the state house with a big old sign that said "Free the plant," wearing no clothes and like little, weed leaves and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there was tons of us down there years and years ago. From there, I lived in Colorado, where it truly was the Wild Wild West. I did retail, and I was sending my employees home with bags of cash, envelopes of cash, saying, "Be careful, like tuck this away so you don't get robbed on the way home." And so for me, just having seen, from my perspective, I've seen no regulation to now where we're at, where it's very incredibly regulated. Personally, I'm a fan of regulation, having worked in kind of like an area where there was none. And so at least now, as an operator, and we're small, we have like less than like 40 employees. We are women, minority owned, manufacturing, processing. And, I'm thankful that I'm able to provide my employees a job, a paycheck, health insurance. The amount of people we've been able to employ as an industry, it's all walks of life. I have employees that, started off as drivers and now they're running our extraction equipment. So it's been a pretty amazing thing just to watch people create careers without fancy degrees and, basically just walk onto the job and work their way up through hard work and education. And that's one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of.
How big is Beneleaves? Tell me a little bit about your company and stuff.
So we're small. So we have like about 40 employees. trying to think of our square footage right now, and I'm having a brain fart. You're welcome to come through. We're right off of Harrison, so like we're right downtown Columbus. I have my cards up here too, so if any of you want to come through for a tour, if you're in the area,
It's a great tour.
we
It
always
really is.
love
Yeah.
having tours. We bring people through all the time.
It's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Bring the bunnies.
It's been an incredible experience.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot of people forget too that the people who work in a lot of these companies have been the risk takers of this industry. That's how they got into it, because they have been historically the people who have been underground growers, the people who
that's a
have been
great point.
Yeah.
Like the very first people that I hired in dispensary, it was hilarious because it'd be like, do you want to see my green resume? Do you want to see like a restaurant resume? I'm really curious in your green one, but give me your restaurant one so I can file that one.
right.
But yeah, I mean, it was amazing. So it's like, that's a great point. It gives people a pathway of entry to work in an industry and, be able to do what they love, and receive a paycheck and be able to put food on their table for their family.
I just wanted to say thank you for everything. And I know from being in the bar industry for 8 years now, that the bar industry is down 42%, they said. And I went out of the industry because I have a conscience and I suffered with alcoholism for many years and I didn't feel like there was any way out. But then figuring out like how to actually dose yourself, what to take, what works. My prayer is that we can bring that to a main scale, where it's not so taboo. But instead of seeing a prescription on TV commercial 50 times a day, why not, so in the marketing, right? Like legally. Where could we at all in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Ohio in general, find a marketing company that would dare say, even if the industry went in secretly and paid for it, right?
Yeah.
But to educate through media.
Yeah.
Because it's missing.
I absolutely agree. And that is one of the major pressure points as an industry that we would love to be able to educate our products and be able to say, medically, this is, this could maybe probably kind of help with your pain.
Yeah.
I know when I first started in retail as well, it was like a big no-no, like for my bud tenders to be able to give out any type of like medical claims.
Yeah.
Now it seems that they've loosened that up to where, bud tenders now are more free to speak inside the dispensary, which is amazing. They can talk about their personal experience with the products and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think your point though kind of ties to a bigger one, which is the Schedule I status. And I've heard different perspectives on what would be more beneficial for the data-driven, like placebo effect, like all those studies that we need to be able to have, doctors and, medical professionals to be able to properly prescribe and say, hey, this dose helps with this. But we'll see, the Schedule III would help that. It would allow pharmaceutical companies to do that, those placebo studies and try to get that data. Part of that is a little nerve-wracking as well, because where does that line go as far as, down that track?
Letting them
We
take
know.
over. Right.
And then we know too,
Yeah.
the plant in its most natural form is the best medically.
Yes.
And so medically passionate, I feel like I lean more towards descheduling personally, which is what we try to lobby for, especially when we go to DC. It's like we try to give them a lot of these points. And so I definitely lean towards that. But we'll see. But as far as here in Ohio, it's like third-party organizations.
Yeah.
So like Gabby and, Civics and like whoever else kind of wants to jump on this train.
Yeah, absolutely.
I started off in the nonprofit world, and so I had a nonprofit here when the program first started, and that was one of the things I was kind of championing as well. Is like, how do we educate? And everyone's so different as far as their dosing.
Yeah.
Like for me, literally 1 milligram is plenty. But my friend who's half the size of me can down 500, and she'll be totally fine. And so it really just depends, and I think a lot of that too is just be
But we
amazing.
do label.
Yeah,
We do label. We do
Absolutely.
say,
Yep.
take and wait,
Yeah.
right?
That doesn't stop people
No.
from doing it wrong though.
Right,
And,
right, right.
I've heard too lately also that, occasionally people get upsold at the dispensary, and they end up getting a 25 or a 30 milligram when they intended to get a 10, and they can have some bad,
Which is wild because, personally, I feel like as an industry, and this is like, outside of Ohio, if we extrapolate this out, like nationally, like as an industry, we really need to take responsibility for this dosing and like THC percentages with the flower, lower THC with flower is actually more beneficial because they've been able to capture way more of, just all the effects of that, terpenes and all of that. So there's definitely a lot of just education that needs to be done. But go ahead.
And bouncing off of what you said, I had a client that came in, and literally what she's saying, the upsell thing.
Yes.
So, long story short, I looked in, he's like, he wanted what he had last time, so I went back to his history. Okay, cool, we have this. So I was like, I can tell it was an upsell because you just know. So I was like, okay, so I want these gummies too. So I was like, okay, we'll get this. And I was like, hey, did you want those gummies that you had last time too? He was like, oh no. And he was like, no, my wife took those and she had a horrible reaction. And so that I went right to my boss and I was like, I've never even thought about that. Because Davis is company wise, they want you to sell it, but just person wise. So now every time I'm like, I ask a few more questions like, I can't give you a diagnosis, but you can tell me if you're on medication or whatever, and then I can look up and see, I don't mind taking that little extra time.
And it's needed. And as an industry, we need to take that responsibility. We need to take that extra time.
Yes, I was like, I just look at them. I'll spend 30 minutes. I'll ask 5 people. I'll look it up. They appreciate it. They don't mind sitting there taking their time. But exactly what you said is so true because I was like, this was literally just an upsell.
Yeah. Because as we know, higher, percentage flower, higher milligram edibles does not necessarily mean a more, substantial beneficial product.
Yeah. People, they're so misinformed, because the 40 pack is just a higher quantity. It's not a higher dosage, but I have to marry those two together to make them understand. No, you're just getting more gummies, but it's still, the number game.
Right.
Label.
You never know who's going to be coming into your dispensary, whether it's somebody who needs a 50 milligram product or somebody who, it always applies the same thing that we all learned Budtender 101, which is go slow, low and slow. Yeah.
We all learned that lesson early on.
Right, yeah. Either personally or from someone else, exactly.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the feed now because my battery's running low anyway. So. All right. That should be a.
Can you say that again?
I showed up to cheers.